Hi, this is Group 5, and I'm Caitlin Kime,
I am Doris Quiñones.
I'm Jessica Lira.
My name's Eileen Solis.
and this is for ASCI 67, and today we're going to be talking about against pasture raised and free range. So, a little background, what is it? The livestock industry is in the breeding and raising of demonstrated animals for the animal byproducts ranging from meat, wool, milk, eggs, etc. These operations are designed to minimize costs and maximize profits. Financial contribution. This is a very important branch of agriculture. The commercial livestock industry alone made 249.6 billion to the US economy in 2023. Of these commercial farms, 99% of these farms are considered concentrated animal feeding operations, also known as CAFO. CAFO is defined by a 45 days in 12 months that animals are confined and fed harvested feeds. These ranches must have a minimum of 1,000 pounds of live weight animals in any species. To the right, you can see all the types of animals and the minimum number of animals for those spaces. A little history. The industry of agriculture we know today has been in the making since 1930s, as companies moved practice that would minimize costs and maximize profits. The first sector in the livestock industry to move towards CAFO was swine through incorporating mechanization. Then the mechanization in agriculture during the Green Revolution of the 1950s and 60s forever changed the trajectory of the livestock industry. Increasing feed helps ranchers support the increasing number of livestock. In 1966, the United Nations publicly declared intensification of animal production was seen as a way of providing food security. Now on with food demand. Animal byproducts often contain all essential amino acids. This is high demand. With the world population expected to reach 9.8 by the year 2050. Globally, the average person, about 70 to 85% of their protein intake yearly comes from animal byproducts. The agriculture industry is in great demand. Their main objective is to produce enough food for the increasing population. As free-range and cage-free companies are costly in smaller operations, it would be nearly impossible to supply the needed amount of meat.
Intentional breeding. Misconceptions. So, activists often use high performance livestock as an example of poor living conditions or bad animal welfare. However, the public lacks knowledge that these animals are specifically bred to maximize production. The poultry, laying hens and cattle are often photographed with patchy feather patterns. This is used as a marketing tactic by animal activists and free range companies alike. These hens' bodies are designed to focus their energy to laying eggs rather than a feather pattern. The feather pattern is not an indication of health, but there are countless employees and feed nutritionists that are ensuring these animals get proper feeding and are in ideal condition to maintain comfort. As you can see the pictures on the right, you can see the little hens. So this is the economic value. Profits brought in by CAFO are designed to cut out extra cost and have high yields. Job opportunities. These large-scale companies have produced over 2.6 million on-farm jobs and cumulatively over 19.6 agriculture and food-related jobs. Job security is low and unemployment is dramatically increasing. Our economy would take a major hit if these job opportunities were lost. So, COFA created jobs in farming, processing, transportation, and the retail industries. So, the global part, our country makes an impressive amount of sales in global exports. This means that there is a high demand for meat and dairy products in countries like Japan and the Middle Eastern countries, and they have limited opportunity for livestock production. allows producers to maximize production, making enough meat to sell to exports. So on the right, we have a chart that depicts the million pounds being sold or transported to countries. There's beef, pork, broiler meats, and turkey. Dairy intentional breeding. Another major point of controversy the industrial livestock faces in the conditions of dairy farms. People often imagine cows on a barn like in TV shows, but however, this condition is not realistic to keep up with the demand for milk and milk byproducts. So basically, these dairies are not keeping their animals in humane condition. Rather, the ranchers take extreme measures to keep cows as comfortable as possible. So, comfort. The importance of comfort in the dairy industry could not be stressed enough. Sustainable. Ranchers use sustainable practice, use as repurposing sawdust, sand, wood, and other materials to make bedding for cows. Nutrition. Contrary to cows' lean appearance, there is in fact an entire specialty that focuses on creating ideal feed to meet all nutritional needs and promote milk production, as you can see on the pictures on the right.
These
These
are
are
references and sources. And then some pros and cons, some cons for pasture raised and free range ranches is that there's a higher production cost because it requires more land, labor, and the time that it takes to get the animals to slaughter. There's also more land being used. The more land we use has led to soil erosion, water contamination, and would make it uninhabitable for animals that were in the area, which is obviously a big environmental issue and should be focused on as well. There's also the potential of predator threats when having a pasture and a free range flock, because when it comes to free range and pasture range animals, the animals are now being exposed to predators like coyotes, hawks, and other different predators, which is obviously super bad for the farmer, and they would then have to hire somebody as a protector for the animals, which is yet another cost, making the food more expensive. Another big issue is because these animals tend to have really strict regulations on the antibiotics and medicines they're given. There's a higher issue with disease and parasites. If the animals are outdoors, they can be exposed to different parasites, bacterias, or wild animals that can carry diseases, which can kill the animal in the surrounding area. An example of this is the ticks being that are biting cattle being ran in the foothills, and then this causes abortions, which is obviously a huge loss for farmers and very devastating for the economy. Another con for pasture and free range is that there's a lot of issues with false animal welfare claims. The labels that say free range can often be misleading to people and can lead the animals because of the laws pertaining to free range. They can often say different things when in reality the animals lived very little of their life outdoors. Another thing is there's a less predictable production. There's maybe a 50-50 chance that the growth rates, like laying hens, would be the overproduction and can be less consistent than in a controlled environment. There's also a higher, this contributes to multiple things. This can come from predators, illness, or even being exposed to harsh weathers. Obviously, this is a big issue, especially when thinking about those colder states. The animals can obviously get a lot more sick because of the harsh weathers, making it harder to produce food in all of the US. Not always going to be sustainable in a large scale is another major factor to consider. It is very hard for these farmers to meet the needs of consumers because they are producing a lot less meat in comparison to a commercial industry. So these are just all really good factors to consider when consuming meat.
Why do people support cons instead of pro? The reason why people consider pasture and free range systems as cons is because of four main things that were listed in the con slides, which is inefficiency, environmental impact, inconsistent animal welfare, and high costs. All of these types of systems require more land to use, more water to waste, plus getting more resources per animal, which makes it less scalable and worsen the environment if done on a bigger scale, which additionally makes a higher price point to be a limiting factor of accessibility, which also causes the nutritional benefits to be often more seen as being minor than compared to the cost that was increased. The evidence of each cons. Evidence of, of environmental impact. Higher greenhouse gases emissions and increased land use. Pasture-raised and free-range livestock always produce more greenhouse gases per unit of meat than compared to other conventional systems. This is due because of how longer the lifespan is and how increased the land is being used. These systems, like said before, require more land to use, which can lead to habit loss if scaled up. Um, Animal welfare cons. Exposure to predators and weather. Animals in the free range systems are more bare to predators, plus killing more animals during like bad weather conditions, which like I said before impact their welfare. The evidence of each cons, economic and accessibility issues, higher costs of consumers and increased production cost. Products that are from pasture-raised and free-range systems are more expensive, making them less accessible to other people, which means that using that much land is a waste of time, a waste of resources, because people can't afford these products. Farmers are also facing a difficult time with the higher cost because of the lower animal density and the increase of land, which is causing profitability to decrease. Natural benefits that are overstated, minimal nutritional differences. In some studies, evidence suggests that pasture-raised products have higher levels of specific nutrients that makes a difference compared to conventional products that are often minimal. The evidence of each cons, limited scalability challenges in meeting global demand. Trying to scale up with pasture-raised and free-range systems in order to meet global meat consumption demands would be difficult because of how much resources, including land, that is required in order to overcome the challenges. These are all the resources that we used.